Welcome back to Common Sense, everybody. I'm Wendy Bell. Okay, we're going to change gears. We're going to talk about China now. Not their geopolitics necessarily or their theft of our intellectual property, the buying of our farmland, or even that spy balloon. That was no big deal, right? I want to talk about China's people problem, because what's going on there in a land of 1.4 billion is actually now happening here. Have you guys seen this? Young kids are not young people, aren't having kids anymore in either of our countries. In China, the issue is certainly multi-pronged, and it's a lot of the government's fault. The one-child rule, plus skyrocketing costs of education, the expense of just surviving it all, it's really pushed China's birth rate down 50%, you guys, from just 2016, when the government allowed couples to have a second child. Allowed, right? But instead, young Chinese are choosing to have no children whatsoever, and that math does not look good for them. Well, here in the United States, we could argue the problem might even be worse. Young Americans aren't even getting together to have kids. Why? Well, because young women, apparently, are too much of a hassle, and young men don't want to deal with it. I know, right? Is a country sustainable if it stops making babies? Can a country survive if its young women are too toxic to even date? Let's bring back the panel. I know, this is a good one, right? Nick Craig hosts Wilmington's Morning News on 107.9 FM and 980 AM. Melanie Collette hosts Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast out of New Jersey. And Steve Sanchez is a talk host on KDWN out of Las Vegas. All right, Melanie, China enacted that one-child policy back in the 1980s. They said it was to slow down what it thought was a population growing too quickly. At least that was the story. But now, with the population of childbearing women projected to plummet by 20% through 2030, China is like about facing big time. They want everybody, like, have a big family now, do it fast. Without young people, China quite literally won't be able to manage its aging population. Something is turned off an entire generation of baby makers. Melanie, you're the money girl. Is it all about the Benjamins, or what's going on?
Oh, it's a lot about the Benjamins. Look, I don't have any children, and part of the reason is because it's so flipping expensive. Also, dating in general is trash. Just as a side note from a single girl. I'm not a younger single girl, but single. And the dating scene is just trash. But also, I think, I'm not lying. Ask anybody. But it's all about the money. It's super expensive to have a child these days. And if you don't want your children indoctrinated, you want to have money to send them to private school or homeschool them. And it's just not sustainable economically, especially for young people, I would say.
Sure. Our switchboard is flooded right now with men who would like to date you. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. All right. So, Steve, you know, here in America, more than half of all women under the age of 30 are childless. Half, more than half. So here's the stunner. More than 63% of men under the age of 30 are now single. That's up from 51% in 2019. And they say this is by choice, that they actively are trying to avoid relationships altogether. Steve, want to guess why?
This would be a whole hour segment, to be honest with you. But I think, you know, definitely Melanie's right. Money is a huge thing. People are chasing a dream that they saw their parents or maybe their grandparents have, and they get very discouraged, young people these days, especially the Gen Z. Depressed, discouraged, that they're not making six figures, so they're like, just give me 5 more years, then I'll get married, then I'll have a family, and that 5 years never comes. That's part of it. Social media is part of that as well. You need to be by yourself, you know, self only. We see that men and women, but in all fairness, to the ladies out there, that some are toxic. Yes, there's a lot of toxic men that don't know how to be men. They still live in their mommy's basements. They don't know how to lead. Their parents never showed them how to lead. They don't know how to be men. And until we actually start raising men, maybe we'll start raising women that want those men, and then things will change in America.
Well, that's a really good answer, but I want to tell the reason why young men in America, when polled, say, why aren't you even dating? They say because the modern Western woman costs too much money and causes too much trouble. Nick, do you agree? Do you agree with that?
I hope my girlfriend doesn't watch this whole segment. You are going to get me in an incredible amount of trouble. This is the most loaded thing that I've ever been on any interview in my life. So you're talking about progressive women, and as a mid-20-something-year-old male, I think there's a couple of things that are going on here. There's this level of entitlement and this level of no responsibility, and I think you see that kind of exemplified in the whole student loan thing, right? You've got large swaths of individuals in their early 20s that want everybody else to clean up their mess in regards to student loans because they don't want to take any responsibility for their actions. And that's just one example of something that young folks are having to deal with in the dating scene. But it unfortunately comes into so many other facets of their life as well, just not able to accept responsibility. And like Steve was saying, it's the quote unquote American dream. And just 5 years, 3 years, 10 years, it doesn't always come, and you just push it and push it and push it.
Right. And this is what you just said about taking responsibility. That's what burns me so much about the Claudine Gay thing. Like, just freaking take responsibility, right? Just say what it is. And Melanie, this is crazy. With more than 71% of young women in America identifying as progressive. 71%? Like what? Men say a first date now feels like a job interview, with women scrutinizing their finances and expecting like grand gestures of wealth and ambition like it's Valentine's Day, except every day. I mean, I just must have been cheap. I was good with pizza and beer.
Same, Wendy. I'm with you. And these chicks out here bringing hardly anything to the table, but want, the millionaire who's 6'5" and has all the abs. That is not how it works, ma'am. You have to, there's something called reciprocity that you need to bring to the table. And they're bringing nothing and wanting everything. I completely agree with that sentiment.
Right. Right. And Steve, you've already touched on this, but I remember the study that revealed young men would rather play video games than they would even casually hooking up with someone. Like, in a progressive woman's defense today, and I can't believe I just said that, where does she find love? At a Black Lives Matter rally? Like, where is a progressive going to go find a hookup, right?
No, it's absolutely true. And this is the problem with AI and a lot of these things. We're almost now starting to talk to this group that you're talking about of young men, that they can go have an AI girlfriend. We've all seen those reports. The trajectory of the country's changed. Evil has been let loose in America. So the thinking that we all had many years ago that we grew up with is now slowly disappearing. So of course you're going to actually start getting progressive women expecting XYZ. They watch the Kardashians. They watch, TLC and Lifetime and all these reality shows that give them a false expectation, 90-Day Fiancé and all these other things. This is the problem. Not that I'm against media and entertainment. I think it's phenomenal, but it could be very dangerous, especially if we don't have the mental capacity to be able to deal with it appropriately.
Right, I agree with you. And Nick, despite the cancer that can be feminism, polls suggest young men today are fairly traditional. They see women who want to be moms, who want to raise a family and run a household as attractive. But what they're finding is the opposite out there. Yes, no, maybe so? What do you think?
I think that's pretty accurate, especially if you poll a group of mid-20-something or early 30 individuals that would align themselves more with conservative ideals. I think that would be very attractive to be looking for in a partner, and I don't necessarily think that's what you're seeing in that open pool right now.
Melanie, you and I are looking really good. Conservative women, right? Everybody out there can say it. Go, girl, you rock it.
That's exactly right, ma'am. And I'll tell you, I don't know what these young women are doing wrong, but the younger men are talking to a lot of women in my age group, which I think is very strange. But perhaps this is why, because this is what they're getting from the young liberal women.
I love it, you guys. You rock it. Thank you so much for being here.